So welcome to MICAH Dakota County Housing 2022 Virtual Bus Tour. I'm Sue Watlov Phillips. I'm your tour guide and going to attempt to be your bus driver as we're moving along today. And I'm going to turn it over to Pat.
Hello, I am Pat Eveslog, and I am a member of the MICAH South Planning Board. I'd like to welcome you all and tell you a little bit about what MICAH is. Many of you know, but there may be some first-timers that don't know us. We are the Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing. We started back in 1988 by people of diverse faiths who came together to address the growing number of people in our communities experiencing homelessness. Our mission is to ensure that everyone without exception has a safe, decent, accessible, and affordable home. We're welcoming, respectful, accepting, loving, and we treat others the way we would want to be treated if we were in a similar situation. Our members, our congregations, and different organizations that help to address the immediate needs of people in our community, providing support that includes prevention services, outreach, food, shelter, transitional and supportive housing, and affordable rental and home ownership options. In addition to providing or supporting these direct services, we advocate with local, state, and national policymakers to address systemic causes of homelessness, advocating for policy changes that encourage communities to build and preserve affordable housing that currently is in such short supply. Our work is based not only on our values, but on listening to and working with people who have experienced homelessness themselves and encouraging them to use their God-given power and voice at decision-making tables and developing solutions to the current housing crisis. 70% of MICAH's board and staff are from diverse communities, and over half of our board and staff have experienced homelessness or housing crises or discrimination in housing. We organize in 6 regional chapters, and they each meet monthly on Zoom. There's the MICAH South Group, which we are headquartered in Dakota County. There's MICAH Northeast Washington and Suburban Ramsey County, MICAH St. Paul, MICAH Anoka County, MICAH Housing for All Suburban Hennepin County, and the MICAH in Minneapolis includes Blue Line, Freedom from the Streets, and No More Streets. You're welcome to join us in MICAH South at our chapter meetings on the second Tuesday at 5 o'clock, and to sign up, and that is on Zoom, and to sign up for our constant contact and newsletter. Now, Sue's going to put that into the info in the chat when she's not driving the bus. So if you're looking for that information, it will show up in our chat. Now, I'd like to welcome Tim Dulac, who is a member of our planning community at MICAH South, and he will share a faith reflection.
Thank you, Pat. I'm Tim Dulac from MICAH South, and it's nice to see everyone that has joined this morning. Let us give thanks for all those here with us today. Have us support the best we can to assure every man, woman, and child has adequate shelter to fulfill their needs. Let us make sure all will be connected to resources for essential needs, food, and health care. Let us help to remove any physical and emotional barriers that stand in the way, so all can share in what most of us take for granted. And finally, help us to be non-judgmental. Share these concerns with family and friends to help all in need to rise in a better place. Our creators have deemed us to do this stuff to make sure that no one is left short. We have a lot of resources, and let us share them to the best we can. Peace to all.
Thank you, Tim. And now I'm going to send it over to Sue, our bus driver.
All right. And again, MICAH is the Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing. And the verse that we use it from MICAH 6:8 is, MICAH lives out our prophetic vision that calls us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. And again, we envision a metropolitan area where everyone, without exception, has a safe, decent, accessible, and affordable home. So the rules of the bus. So I'm also the tour guide and the bus driver. So we're recording this meeting. Please stay muted until you're called on. If you would like to ask a question, you can certainly put it in the chat, or if we have time, we'll try to take some questions as we're going along on the bus tour. If at any point your audio or video doesn't seem to be working very well, try turning off your camera feed, and no spitballs on the bus. So,
Any popcorn?
so let's get on board. So a virtual bus tour here. So if everybody can go on mute, here we're going. And so I'm just going to tell you, as a virtual bus driver, do not try doing this as you are driving. You're going to see some interesting turns we make. All right. We're going to have our first stop at Dakota County. And Pat?
Okay, I'd like to introduce the people representing Dakota County. We have Madeline Castley, the Deputy Director, and Marty Fishback, who is the Director of the Community Services Division. And they're going to share with us a little bit about what's going on at the county in their work to help people find housing. Madeline?
Great. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Let me know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Great. And there we go. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
And Pat, you might want
Wonderful.
to. So.
And now I will turn it over to Marty.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for allowing Dakota County some time to share what we've been working on. You can go to the next slide. So these are the 4 different areas where we've had quite a bit of movement in the last 2 years, and wanted to provide an update. For many of these projects that you're going to hear about, we have made investments using MICAH Rescue Plan dollars. Madeline will add some specifics as we walk along with the agenda, but just to give you a little bit of a preview, the youth shelter is a new initiative that includes both Dakota and Washington investments, Washington County investments, and in both cases, ARP dollars. The hotel shelter is continues to be supported, and some of that support is coming from the MICAH Rescue Plan. And we're talking about shelter development, and we've talked about that as a possibility, but no decisions are made in that area. Next slide. Last year, we talked about this because we were just wrapping up this time last year. So we did these, a rebooted housing leadership work group in 2021. The goal was to revisit what came out of the original group and assess the current state. The primary driver to revisit this group was a need for an adult shelter, but we wanted to do that in the broader context of the housing continuum. And you can see the membership here. We had as many of the original members from the first committee that happened in 2017. We tried to include as many of those original members as we could. Next. So this is the full continuum of interventions, and we structure the meetings around the 3 areas with the arrows. So the lesson from the first housing business plan and in response to our board is we really wanted to intentionally talk about the bookends, as Madeline would say. We knew we were missing prevention in the first group, and we wanted to ensure that we had affordable housing so we can continue to attend to that system flow. The shelter at the time, we needed a long-term plan for shelter versus what we had been doing, which was the rotating shelter with churches. This continuum also highlights the collaboration that we have with a lot of the partners that are part of the bus tour. So Ally provides some of our street outreach. Dakota Woodlands, of course, has a shelter. 360 helps us with eviction and homeless prevention. And Cahill Place are all initiatives that are found on this continuum. Next. So again, these are the 3 recommendations, and I'm going to turn it over to Madeline, and she's going to talk in more detail on the first 2. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marty. So again, good morning. I'm Madeline Kassler with Dakota County Social Services. I'm going to start by walking through our eviction and homelessness prevention recommendations, and then I'll move on to all of the work that we're doing in the shelter space. So we made several recommendations to our county board related to homelessness prevention. These strategies, from the bottom of this graphic up to the top, provide interventions that address housing crises when people are being evicted from their homes, and then move more and more upstream to provide help before a crisis occurs. At the bottom of the graphic, we are recommending investments in the housing clinic at eviction court, which you are going to hear more about later this morning from 360 Communities. This includes court navigation, case management, getting connected to legal assistance and financial assistance, and other resources that are needed to prevent the eviction from happening in the first place, and hopefully prevent future evictions from happening. Next up from housing clinic, we are recommending a continuation of the emergency rental assistance program. That's currently funded by the federal government and provides financial assistance to those who are behind on rent and utilities. With federal ERA funds, Dakota County has assisted over 2,000 households with $16.8 million since the beginning of 2021. Those payments go towards rent and utility assistance, and they help to keep renters stable, but also ensure that property owners and landlords receive rent payments that they are owed. And then up from there, we recommend investments in flexible prevention services to help people get connected to services and resources they need to prevent a housing or other crisis from happening that might jeopardize their housing. So moving on to shelter, for several years, as most of you know, Dakota County had a rotating church-based shelter model.
Sorry.
Yes.
I just want to know with the levels of prevention. Now, are these people already have vouchers, or are these the people that don't have the vouchers yet?
It could be any number of people. So any Dakota County resident who is renting could be a part of those services if they are in eviction court or if they're eligible for emergency rental assistance. So voucher or no voucher doesn't make a difference in whether or not we provide those services.
Oh, okay. So both. Okay. That's just. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. With shelter, Dakota County had a rotating church-based shelter model, which worked to keep hundreds of people safe and sheltered each winter. Then the COVID pandemic happened, and we pushed all of our sheltering work into a hotel model. Based on the feedback from our community and from people in shelter, we want to transition to a shelter model going forward that retains some of that privacy and dignity of the hotel model, which led us to explore what we are terming a congregate plus model. So it has shared restrooms and dining areas, but allows for private sleeping areas. We already have this model in Dakota County, currently with the family shelter, Dakota Woodlands, who you will also hear from later this morning. And it's the model that Avivo Village uses in Minneapolis, and that's the picture at the top of the screen. Dakota County staff, including our capital projects team, recommended fixed site shelter to the Dakota County board using this congregate plus model, and the board has earmarked $6.3 million in ARP funds for that shelter development.
Wow, that's beautiful.
To help further the goal of fixed site shelter, we're in the process of organizing several community meetings in Dakota County to share updates on planning for shelter and how you can get involved to support that shelter development. We will be partnering with faith communities around Dakota County to host these meetings, as our faith communities have been an essential partner in responding to needs of persons experiencing homelessness and shelter development in the past, and we hope to build on those partnerships as we develop a permanent shelter. Our first scheduled meeting is October 4th from 7 to 8 p.m. at Prince of Peace in Burnsville. In the meantime, we continue to shelter people in hotels throughout Dakota County. The Link, Ally Services, and Dakota County have a collective 70 units of shelter for single adults, with Dakota County ramping up to have an additional 30 by the end of the year. Since the beginning of COVID, our single adult hotel programs have served 475 people. The Dakota County shelter specifically serves single adults and their pets. We take referrals to this program from our partners in social services, corrections, street outreach, our local police departments, and the CDA, among others. And if you have any questions about how to make referrals, please contact me and I can give you more information about that. The county board approved $1.5 million in American Rescue Plan funds for hotel shelter. The pictures here show one of the pets who's receiving vet services from a group called the Street Dog Coalition, who came in to provide a clinic for our cats and dogs that were in the shelter. We also have a picture of some of the many donations we've received from our faith community partners on this project, and then our new shelter team. And finally, Dakota County will be soon opening a new youth shelter in Mendota Heights called Aspen House. This project began in 2019 when Dakota and Washington counties partnered to address a gap in services that was created when Harbor Shelter, a youth shelter in Hastings, closed its doors. Aspen House will have 12 beds for youth ages 12 to 18 and will receive referrals from the county's crisis response team, as well as juvenile corrections and child protection teams. Youth will be referred to this program when they need a safe place to stay temporarily while they're working on longer term solutions with their families. We're going to have an open house and ribbon cutting event in mid-October, and we are on track to begin serving children in late October. There is $2.5 million in ARP funds for this project to purchase and renovate the building. $1.75 million from Dakota County and $400,000 came from Washington County's ARP funds. I'll include, when I'm done with the presentation here, I will include a link in the chat to our Dakota County newsletter, which has a lot more information on this particular project. So thank you so much for having us on the bus this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you'll stop sharing, Madeline, that'd be great. Great. Thank you so much. And again, their website is there, so you can get in contact with Madeline. So again, thank you both Madeline and Marty for your presentation. And so here we go, jump on the bus again. Hang on, you got your coffee, put your lid on it. So here we go. Again, don't try to do this on the freeway. All right, and we're over here.
Now I'd like to introduce 360 Communities with Kelly Esch, their housing support supervisor, letting us know what they're doing over at 360 right now. Kelly?
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my slides here. One moment. Okay, can you see my presentation up there? Okay, great. So thank you to MICAH for inviting 360 Communities to be a part of this bus tour. They had asked us to talk about the Dakota County Housing Clinic, and that is the clinic that Madeline had just mentioned in her presentation. And so what I'd like to do is talk for a couple minutes about what 360 Communities does in our community, about the Dakota County Housing Clinic. And then we are going to show you a video that includes an interview with one of our clients, and then all of the collaborators who have been a part of developing this program. So here you go. So again, my name is Kelly Esch. I'm the Housing Support Supervisor. 360 Communities has been around a while. We are celebrating our 50-year anniversary this year. This gentleman that you see on the screen, his name is John Johnson, and he was the original director of the program. We serve more than 16,000 people annually in Dakota County. We have 90 staff and over 1,000 volunteers. So what we do, we are in 40 locations in Dakota County. We have 5 food shelves. We have 2 resource centers that offer, 2 of our food shelves are located there. Our resource centers are in Rosemount and Burnsville. We also offer financial assistance and family support services. We have 2 domestic violence shelters. The Lewis House may be a name that you're familiar with. And then we have staff throughout the schools who provide assistance to families to support school success. These are our program areas. I'm going to focus on community resources because that's where my program falls within the 360 Communities umbrella. And as a part of that, I'll talk to you about a new program that started on October 13th last year in the courts. However, it was a program that was 2 years in the making, and it involved a collaboration of community partners to bring it to light and into being. So the clinic takes place during eviction court hearings. It is the initial hearing when tenants who have been served with an eviction summons attends court to either what the judges call it is admit or deny. They either admit the allegations or deny them. And as a part of that process, they typically would meet with the landlord's attorneys and try to come up with a settlement agreement. However, most people who are being evicted do not have representation in court by an attorney. So as the video will show you, it really the clinic provides not only legal assistance, it also provides access to social services and resources. And that's where 360 Communities comes in. So the purpose is to help tenants avoid eviction and attain housing stability. The participation is voluntary. Tenants do not have to participate in the program if they are not interested, and that is just fine. So it has been a true collaboration of community partners. You'll see in the video, Sharon Jones from Legal Assistance of Dakota County notes that the complexities of homelessness and housing and eviction court can't be addressed by one agency alone. We all bring different expertise into intervening to try to keep people in their homes. So this program was led by Dakota County Social Services. Terry Lazzaretti, the landlord coordinator, who many of you may know, she spearheaded an effort to bring a court program that is similar to other models in the metro area. So Ramsey County is the one that she had observed. She got the support of Madeline Kassler and then reached out to all of the different organizations that you see on the screen. Family Housing Fund provided the seed money to get this pilot started. And then Legal Assistance of Dakota County and SMERLS, they have attorneys who also staff the housing clinic. 360 Communities provides the social services aspect, and I'll get into that detail a little bit later. And then Dakota County Social Services also offers some financial assistance through referrals from 360 Communities. So the overall goal of the housing clinic is to reduce the number of evictions in Dakota County. In order to do that, during court, all of the providers there help tenants navigate their way through an eviction hearing. It's a stressful and confusing situation due to the amount of stress. It is on Zoom, and often tenants that come to court have never been through this type of process before, and they know that they're at risk of losing their housing. So having providers there to having providers there to assist really makes the difference for the outcomes of their eviction hearing. So we want to connect tenants to rent assistance programs if they're eligible, connect tenants to crisis housing programs if they do end up losing their housing. We want to help tenants who have housing assistance in place, such as Section 8 vouchers, avoid eviction if at all possible, so that they can continue to have their keep their Section 8 voucher, other housing assistance. And of course, we want to provide them an opportunity to get legal advice so they understand what their legal rights are, the limits of Minnesota landlord-tenant law, and what their legal options are. So as the vast majority of evictions are for non-payment of rent. So this program could not be successful if there weren't mechanisms for access to rent assistance programs. And one of the ways in which we're trying to address that need is through a collaboration, teaming up of Dakota County and 360 Communities to prevent evictions for non-payment of rent. And as Madeline noted, there's still some federal dollars from the COVID pandemic funds called the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Those funds are available through a referral and from 360 Communities, either right before or during court. And assistance is to pay past due rent and utilities for those tenants who are eligible for the program to avoid eviction and make sure that landlords are receiving the back rent that they are owed. I'm just going to move on here because I want to make sure there's enough time for the video. So housing court is held in Dakota County 3 sessions a week on Monday mornings, Wednesday and Thursday afternoons. A full session is 20 cases. And since the eviction moratorium protections ended on June 1st, housing court has been full with 18 to sometimes 21, 22 cases nearly every session. So the need is very high right now. And most of those are for non-payment. People are still getting sick from COVID. The pandemic is over and not as many people are passing away, but people are still getting sick. And for those folks that we serve, often they do not have sick time. So when they have to miss work, they miss pay. We're still, coming back from the pandemic layoffs, and people are just now going back to work, but they have not had a chance to catch up. Then we have crises. People are injured at work, they need surgery. There's high-risk pregnancies, serious illness such as cancer. So people who are in those situations, who are low income, often do not have any savings to fall back on, family members that they can borrow from, and they end up in eviction court. So how does it work? Housing court is held on Zoom. The parties can call or log in. The clinic is held in separate breakout rooms. And after the judge addresses the parties, everyone moves into a breakout room that's called lobby. And then at that point, they can access services through 360 Communities or legal aid. So I just want to introduce what our role is during court. We assess people's needs. We try to connect them to rent assistance programs or make referrals in the case of the Dakota County ERA team, depending upon their eligibility. And we also offer services after court. Housing stability doesn't necessarily happen when the back rent is paid. Sometimes people need additional assistance. So we at 360 Communities can offer help in accessing other resources in order to stabilize their situation and make their living expenses more affordable by connecting them to programs that may be able to help. So I just want to speak for a moment about our impact. Since June 1st, for the months of June, July, and August, there have been 662 evictions filed in Dakota County. Every person who has had an eviction filed and who attended their hearing had an opportunity to meet with a legal aid attorney if they were income eligible, and every person had an opportunity to meet with 360 Communities. 360 Communities has met with 710 tenants. We have provided case management after court service to 449 tenants since we began on October 13th, 2021. Since March of 2022, referrals from 360 Communities to the Dakota County ERA team has paid out about $800,000 of rent assistance to Dakota County landlords. And we just want to thank Dakota County landlords who have been willing to participate in this program for working with this team because, obviously we need our landlords and we want them to get the rent that they are owed. So much appreciation there. So I went over that very quickly. If you had questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. I would be happy to answer any of them. But right now, I would like to have a chance to show you the work that we're doing and to hear from all of the collaborators. So Tony, if you'd like to start the video.
Kelly, stop sharing first.
Yes.
And then Tony, then he'll be able to share.
Yeah, to remind people to mute would be great. And if you are having any trouble, again, another reminder is turn that video stream off because you might get choppy. So 1 second here. Video. Can you all see it?
Have you started it, Tony?
No. Can you see a black screen?
Correct.
There it goes.
My name is Jasmine Stanley, and I'm a communications professional. I think people see me and they always tell me, like, whatever you say you're gonna do, you do it. And whatever like idea you have, you bring it into reality. I make it happen. Sometimes you gotta be radical, like you gotta be different in order to get something different. Right now, I got a small family. It's just me, my daughter, my boyfriend, and our dog. My daughter is 9 years old. She's very active in sports and in community activities. We are a young family. There is some struggle. We don't have a whole lot of money because we're just getting started in our careers and stuff. We're trying, like we're becoming. I can see a lot of potential for us in the future.
I think we need to understand that the legal system and a lot of these systems were originally set up and intended to benefit certain people and not others. And I would say that most renters who show up in a housing court situation are among those who weren't intended to benefit from those systems, while the landlords are often among the intended beneficiaries. So the deck is stacked before the parties show up at court.
You know, I met Jasmine during an eviction hearing, and it wasn't for non-payment. That was the special part about it. She had a good case against the landlord. She's a young lady, and I can tell she had dreams, and she just so happened to be in this predicament. One day, she just called me crying, saying, I don't know what to do. I can't apply anywhere. My credit is bad, and what am I going to do? Me and my child. And all I can tell her is, you know, you can do it.
That's what was the grounds of my eviction, saying that I broke community rules. We're just so sad. It's making me tear up now because we thought we were gonna have to like move out by the court date. And so we was trying to find a place to live in 2 weeks. Right before Christmas, it's freezing cold outside, it's snowing, and it's Minnesota. Like, it feels terrible. You feel like you got no control. Like somebody can just take you out of your house. And then I didn't even get a chance to even try to say, no, this didn't happen. It's just like, you gotta go.
People that were being evicted without cause, and there was nothing that could do, and unrepresented tenants. We all had concerns. We all heard the horror stories about what was going on, but you want to see it for yourself if you can. And we were having court right downstairs. Evictions were happening here. And so we were able to just stop down there and actually sit in and see what evictions look like. So in this building, if you walk out of the courtroom and take about 10 steps, there is access to emergency assistance applications right there. But there is nobody to direct tenants to that resource. Then there were unrepresented clients, people that maybe should not have been representing themselves, maybe would have been best served if they had access to legal aid.
One of the things that is often shocking to people who find themselves in eviction court is that the mere filing of an eviction stays on their record and becomes a barrier to future rental opportunities.
It was the scariest thing, like, I'm not gonna ever be able to move anywhere. Like, how am I gonna do this?
It has a devastating effect to have that eviction on someone's record. It follows them. It severely limits their access to housing that they can afford, that's decent and well managed. The process is confusing and bewildering to normal people. What would it look like if the start of the housing court calendar included an announcement from the judge or the referee that there are these resources available? There's free legal representation for renters. There's help applying for emergency assistance. There's mediation. There are folks comparable to what 360 Communities provides that can help people. And actually adjourn for a time and let people access those resources and maybe work something out in the hallway with between the two parties, the renter and the landlord. The court is set up as a problem-solving arena and a resource-rich environment.
We reached out to a funder and agencies that we thought would be great to work with. We got it all together and started looking at other court programs that were working, and instead of recreating the wheel, we mirrored what we liked there and added our own new things that I thought was important to the program, and we went from there. When we first approached the courts with this idea, they were very excited to have something to offer, and so have been a great partner and very excited to have us come in there and been more than accommodating. Judges are people too, and I think sometimes people forget that, and so they don't feel good about going into a situation where they're putting a household out with nothing else to offer.
There's not one solution for every person who finds themselves in housing court. Different families have different needs. Not every organization has the resources to be all things to all people. And so what we've tried to do by coming together is make sure we have the most resources at the table to meet the individual needs of people who find themselves at housing court.
The problem with evictions is we really have a small window to put those emergency assistance packages together, and everybody wants time. So they want time to process our requests, and we don't have that time with the courts. So we have been asking the attorneys for the landlords to give us a little bit more time to process those applications.
We have great team members. We have fabulous staff from 360's communities, checking in with people, offering housing resources, but also helping them fill out applications for Dakota County specific programs. And then we have both legal services organizations that serve Dakota County to quickly give people legal advice. But we've really come together on this project in order to make sure that we are able to serve all of the members of our community.
Jasmine has a drive. She's strong-willed, resilient. That is her to a T. She fights for what's right, but she does it so respectfully. I did help her apply for cash and SNAP assistance during her housing search, and then I also referred her to financial empowerment for budgeting so she can balance out what she can afford. I think by all those resources, she was able to figure out something for herself to be stable with her child.
Like, this lady is serious. She is for real in helping me.
The case turned out in her favor. You know, she had 30 days to move out.
I'm so happy that we didn't end up with an eviction. The emotional support, feeling like you got somebody who understands you, felt like you just had somebody in it with you, fighting for it with you. So the new place that we live is perfect. It's closer to my daughter's school. Everything that she does, all her friends are there. She's in all these activities, so everything is in that area. Home feels like when we're all together, when we have stability, like when we're not worried about where we're gonna live, money, or how to pay bills. It just feels good when we are just together and just knowing that we're safe. Everything's gonna work out.
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
And have you stopped sharing?
Yes, I've stopped sharing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next up is our Ally Supportive Services.
Okay, we're gonna be heading down the road.
Yeah, we gotta head down the road first.
Yep. Here we go. Again, don't try to do this in your vehicle.
And here we are at Ally Supportive Services, and we're going to hear from Amber Hansen, who is their Housing and Homeless Outreach Director.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, boy, I don't know how to follow Tony's videos though, but I will try.
You guys are amazing.
That was amazing. I'm kind of like choked up. So, wow, that was such an amazing video. So at Ally, we have multiple programs serving the homeless, previously homeless in Dakota County. We do housing support services, homeless street outreach, targeted street outreach, the emergency hotel shelter, and we have the Trusted Messenger program in partnership with MICAH that I'm going to talk about today as well. So today, I'm going to focus on our Trusted Messenger work and give an update on homeless street outreach in Dakota County. So am I to share my screen now, Sue? Is that...
If you have slides you want to show, you can share your screen, or I can share the video, whichever you want me to do.
Okay. Well, we could start with the video. Let's do that. That'll be easier.
Okay. I'll come back and share my screen. So you're going to go off for just a moment.
Two years since the pandemic began, other Minnesota communities have started similar programs.
This is nothing to be playing with.
55-year-old David Hernandez got 2 COVID shots with the help of Ally Supportive Services, a homeless outreach agency in Dakota County. He's now living in housing provided by Ally, but for a dozen years, he lived in encampments like this, where he says there should be concern about viral spread.
Some people were sharing tents and stuff like that. And if, like I said, if you ask them, did you get your shot? You know what I mean? And just to stay warm, they're going to tell you, yeah, just to get inside your tent.
Ally in September, November, and January, giving the shot to nearly 160 people.
Right now, not a lot of people have been very familiar on the Omicron variant.
Amber Hansen, Ally's executive director, says her staffers are...
A lot of people are worried about how sick it's going to make them. If it's going to work as the virus keeps changing, is it going to work against all the new strains that are going to come about?
The CDC says that COVID-19 vaccines are effective in preventing severe illness and limiting the spread of the coronavirus. The agency also says the vaccines are much safer than getting COVID-19.
I had to take a leap of faith myself. Yeah, I was scared at first. I didn't get it for the first 5-6 months and stuff like that, my first shot.
Both these services say they're using financial incentives to encourage people to get vaccinated. Ally gives recipients $100 per shot. Rescue Now gives $100 for the first shot, $150 for the second, and $100 for a booster.
Some might argue that to be like paying somebody to get the shot, you know, is this the right thing to do? What do you think?
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I was a proponent for vaccination and payment from the very first day that I participated in anything COVID.
Whitley says Rescue Now gets its incentive dollars through donations. Hansen says Ally's incentives are funded by a homeless advocacy group.
If that $100 got them in the door to get that shot and they didn't get as sick and need to be hospitalized, that's going to be better for the system as a whole.
It's normal for your arm to be a little sore.
Both women say there's no question the incentives bring people in, but they add, more importantly, this is about keeping the most vulnerable safe.
It helps our community, so they're vaccinated, and it helps them because it decreases their potential for hospitalizations and even death.
And the latest numbers from the Minnesota Department of Health show more than 5,700 people have recently gotten their first COVID vaccination through a homelessness program. Nearly 1,600 have received their first booster shot, Paul.
Okay, we need that to help. Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead, Amber.
Okay, I will share my screen here. Okay. I know in the past I'm not the best at sharing PowerPoint slides. I go to this, should be full screen. All right. So yeah, that video is a little old. At this point, I think we're at over 265 folks have gotten vaccinations through one of Ally's vaccination events that were held throughout Dakota County. Either usually at the Wentworth Library, we did Burnsville Library location, and at our hotel shelter locations, which we do not have just one hotel shelter. We're at various hotels throughout the county. So this work, the trusted messenger work, really fit into what we were already doing in homeless street outreach at the beginning of the pandemic. We were already doing our very best to try to keep people healthy and safe and get needs met. So when we were asked to do this specific work, it was really exciting. It was just such a great fit. That video talks a little bit about the incentive program that MICAH has assisted us with some incentives, and the AICDC. That's how we were able to do the cash incentives for people that came in for vaccination. One reason I think that we were very successful in getting so many vaccines to people was not only the incentives, but the our ability to help with transport and meeting people wherever they're at and in their stage of thinking about if they even wanted it or what questions they had. We have regular education sessions with the Minnesota Department of Health to make sure we're sending the right messages, giving the right information about COVID and everything changing with COVID throughout the past, we're going on a couple of years here. And we have, at Ally, we have a community health worker, Steph Breetzman. I believe she's on today. She's now leading most of the Trusted Messenger vaccine clinics, which are being partnered with Dakota County Public Health and Minnesota Department of Public Health. And then the amount of people continues to grow. And I know we're almost continuously surprised at how many people we're still getting in, either for initial shots, second shots, or boosters. But that kind of brings me to looking at who we're seeing in street outreach. And here I'm going to actually go to this one first. If we want to look at the numbers of homeless street outreach in Dakota County I tried to pull together like 2019 to as close as I have to the latest data group here in 2022. How many people are we even seeing? And I thought it might be interesting to look at our COVID year and how many people are we connecting with out there? So if you look at the latest couple quarters, we're about at, just around, 386 and 335 was Q1 and Q2 of 2022. The numbers are growing. But if you look at the COVID years, the numbers were a little less. I don't really know if that's the right term, COVID years, but when, and we think a lot of people were sheltered or in some form or fashion. So our street outreach numbers won't be as high. But if you look at 2019, we're not far from, but the numbers are growing. So that's notable to recognize. And then people say, well, what are you doing out there? Our trusted messenger work is part of this. What do you do on street outreach? And these numbers are not surprising, but they're growing. The one really notable thing that's happening right now is the numbers aren't growing dramatically, but the intensity of the services we're providing on street outreach is definitely dramatically growing. So in the first column, you'll see housing counseling. That's like anybody we come in contact with will get some form of housing counseling. And then the other kind of really big groups is benefits, which were talked about in like the last presentation by 360s, getting SNAP, GA, medical, and then shelter, and then basic survival needs. Those are growing. They have steadily been growing over the past 3 years, but we're seeing a little more uptick in those. With this, we're going to note like the mental health, chemical dependency. These bar graphs aren't telling you exactly what we're seeing out there, though. We've noticed that the pandemic and COVID-19, everything we've been going through, the evictions, which were talked about, the intensity of what we're seeing out there in those is definitely growing. I'm not able to show that on a graph, but that's something we're really seeing. And another thing I couldn't really pull together in the data, which I wanted to kind of note that if anybody out there is questions about who we're seeing and pulling the data, there's so much I couldn't just put together in this shorter presentation, but it'll show you who we're serving. The biggest group and the biggest change over the last 12 months, it related to evictions, the pandemic, we definitely think, which we can delve into a little bit deeper, but is people are living in cars. We've been seeing this growing over the past 3 years, and probably even longer, but definitely a dramatic uptick of people living in their vehicles in Dakota County. What's different about this than in previous years is that people living in their cars, this is not only, we see this as their shelter. It's not the ideal shelter, but it does shelter them from some elements. It is their transportation. And many of these folks are Uber drivers, are Lyft drivers, are grocery delivery drivers. So in the past couple of years, we've really, as a community and as a society, depended on these folks to also help keep us safe through the pandemic. If somebody is sick, we're depending on them to deliver our groceries, or if an Ally staff member is sick, we call upon our Uber and Lyft drivers to help us get folks to places. So if their car breaks down or they don't have enough gas, that really tears their world apart even worse. That is their shelter, their transportation, and their employment. So that's something that we've really been digging into and seeing more of in our communities, and are very concerned on how can we serve these people the best to get them to move on. A lot of these folks don't end up in shelter, or they become self-sufficient if they can be supported enough. But there just isn't enough funding out there to fix the vehicles or get them on their feet quickly. So that's something we're really noticing kind of, I want to say almost post-pandemic and in our street outreach work. Oh, yeah, that was it. I don't have very many slides, Sue, but so when we're seeing all these folks kind of going back and forth to the trusted messenger work, we're continuing with our partnerships to make sure that these folks are still educated as the information coming out is still changing, and making sure that people get test kits thanks to our Dakota County Public Health team, and can reach these testing and treatment sites, which is new and exciting. We've been doing a lot of that with keeping people safe, and it's really been working. So I think that's about everything, Sue.
Great, thanks, Amber. If you want to stop sharing, we're going to jump to our next site. Thank you so much. And again, you're going to be able to see where you can contact Ally Supportive Services, and we're going to get back on the road again and head on. And again, please don't do that on a freeway, okay? To Dakota Woodlands.
All right, now we're going to jump to Dakota Woodlands, which is a shelter for families. And I'd like to present Jennifer Harrison, their executive director, and Lauren Rose, their program director. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting Dakota Woodlands to join as part of this year's bus tour. As Pat said, my name is Jennifer Harrison. I'm the executive director. And also joining us on the bus today is Lauren Rose, our program director, and I think Beth Burnett, who is our volunteer coordinator, is here. So I want to, acknowledge our staff and volunteers who are such a critical part of this work. And I also want to acknowledge our partners, many of whom are on this call. Your partnership is just really valuable and important to us as we work to help homeless families gain stability. So one of those partners is Dakota County, and Madeline Kassler, I think, is going to help me out by sharing my PowerPoint, because technology is not my friend today. And this is the world we live in now. So I appreciate you, Madeline. Thanks so much. You can go to the next slide. So just some quick homeless statistics from the point in time study that was back in 2020. So this data is a little bit outdated. Woodlands is really around the suburban homeless and how they're considered the hidden homeless, because you're not seeing these folks out on the street corners, et cetera, like you might see in the more urban areas. Most of these folks are turning to family or friends for temporary shelter. And while family and friends are willing to help out for a period of time, it could potentially lead to violating a lease. It could be additional stress on family or friends. It can strain relationships, and then families that end up at Dakota Woodlands don't have anywhere to go. And it also, when those relationships become strained, it also can further isolate the families who are homeless, and they feel like they might not have the support system that they're used to. So if you want to go to the next slide, a little bit about Dakota Woodlands history. So we actually have been around for 41 years. Sometimes I feel like we're a little bit of a secret over here in Egan. We opened in 1981 as a shelter for pregnant teens. And then throughout the 90s, we morphed our residential license for single homeless women, and then homeless women and their children, eventually morphing into the only shelter for families in Dakota County. So both male and female head of households are welcome at Dakota County. At Dakota Woodlands. And in 2000, we moved to where we are currently housed, which is in Egan, right over off Yankee Doodle by the fire station. And that's when we legally changed our name to Dakota Woodlands. Go to the next slide. So as I said, we are the only shelter for homeless families in Dakota County. We partner very closely with Dakota County. Folks who find themselves homeless can call the housing resource line and then get directed to Dakota Woodlands. We can house up to 22 families at a time. So I think of us set up kind of like a dormitory structure. So every family has their own room with beds, dressers, lamps, closet space, etc. We do have shared dining areas, lounges with TVs and couches. Our bathrooms are shared. We have childcare space, a big playground outside. Typically at the shelter, we have anywhere between 22 and 25 adults and 30 to 40 children. So about 70 folks are in our care at any given time. We do 3 meals and snacks per day so that families don't have to worry about food. We provide all clothing and personal care items. So if families come to us with nothing, that's okay. We're going to equip them with everything they need coming in the door. We have something called the store, which provides additional household items and accessories that families can access by earning points by doing chores or other tasks around the shelter. And again, we're all about that 24/7 support. We have 16 full and part-time staff that
Peace.
I think Jennifer may have frozen. Is everybody else seeing that too?
It appears she's not moving and I can't hear anything.
Okay, we're going to just wait a moment, see if she comes back. If not, we will. Madeline, do you want to go to the next slide?
Am I back? I'm sorry.
Oh, yep, you are. Okay,
Oh,
we were going to
so
go to the
sorry
next
about
slide.
that.
Yep,
Oh my
you just
goodness.
froze.
All right. So here we are. Shelter statistics 2021. We sheltered 207 individuals from 71 families. And then you can see some of the statistics there. About 3/4 of our families are families of color. 57% have a history of domestic violence, and 64% have individual income of less than $12,000 annually. The key piece here is our average length of stay. So as many folks have talked about, the absence of affordable housing in the area, evictions, etc., folks coming to Dakota Woodlands have exceptional challenges. And so our average length of stay is typically been about 135 days, but we're seeing that edge northwards. And now we have quite a few families that are staying with us for over 6 months. And we have a couple that are with us now that have been with us for a year. So the environment is really affecting families getting out of homelessness. As we've said, with the rising rent costs and the increase in evictions, they're finding themselves at shelter. And then we're having a bit of a difficult time moving them out of shelter. So those additional challenges are a big piece of it. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Why do people end up at Dakota Woodlands or become homeless? Leaving a bad relationship, so families escaping a toxic relationship, potentially domestic violence, eviction, that's been talked about quite a bit today, financial hardship, mental and physical health issues. So we're seeing an increasing number of folks coming to Dakota Woodlands that have really extensive mental health challenges. In addition to that, I would say also some chemical dependency issues. And then, of course, as we talked about earlier, not able to stay with friends or family any longer, that suburban homeless concept. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So part of what we do at Dakota Woodlands, not only providing those basic needs, but connecting folks and families to resources. So like I talked about, chemical dependency and mental health resources, psychologists and psychiatrists. We do have a psychologist that comes on site once a week. We also try to direct folks to culturally specific treatment programs. We make sure that families are connected to primary care providers, that they have health insurance, connecting them to food shelves, thinking ahead to when they're leaving Dakota Woodlands is, do they have access to food, transportation, low-cost childcare, et cetera. We partner really closely with Prince of Peace's Mission Outpost. We take our residents there twice a month to purchase items such as clothing and household items. We help with job search assistance and resume building. So getting folks ready to enter the workforce, and then any additional schooling that they may need in terms of getting their GED or going on to additional college courses, and et cetera. Our Building Life Skills program is another resource we provide. So residents are invited to attend classes, including our RentWise series, which is basically how to be a better renter and how to be able to advocate for yourself when interacting with landlords. The employment series, which does provides employment help and job search. Financial empowerment, which helps our residents in doing simple tasks like making a budget, balancing a checkbook, etc. We partner with our friends at ECFE to provide parenting classes and parenting coaching. We also have volunteers that come in and do additional classes like meditation, yoga. Sometimes it's cooking, sometimes it's painting. We have an empowerment class that is one of the favorites of our residents. And then we have, other volunteer led classes. Like I said, we have painting. We've had volunteers do parties for us, do dance parties for the kids. So in addition to the Building Life Skills program, we have other folks coming in and and doing enrichment activities for our residents, which has been really, really wonderful. All right, next slide. So how you can help. So our community is a really big part of the success of Dakota Woodlands and the success of our residents. So obviously donations are what help us do this work. So a monetary for sure. We also have an Amazon wish list that we'll send around, which has very specific needs, and it's really easy. You can just drop ship those items to us. Volunteers are always much needed. We, like it said earlier, we provide 3 meals and 2 snacks every day. So weekend kitchen volunteers would be helpful to provide lunch and dinner service. Always special projects, always, children and adult programming. Like I talked about, the parties, Halloween parties are really popular, Christmas parties, etc. And just spreading the word about who we are. Sometimes, so I've been in this role now for 15 months, and sometimes I feel like we're Egan's best kept secret. People don't even realize we have a homeless shelter right in Egan. So letting folks know that we're here and welcoming volunteers and support always. Next slide. All right.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And we're going to jump, if we can move on to our final stop before we go to the Capitol. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And again, now go to Woodlands, and we're going to head on down now to Cahill Place.
So now we're moving on to Cahill Place, which is in the not too distant past, it was something MICAH worked with the local church and with CDA and Center Court City Housing Corps to build Cahill Place. And so today we have Carly Driggins here, the services coordinator, to tell us what they do there. We'll also be hearing from Tony Schertler, the executive director of the Dakota County CDA, at some point during this presentation. So go ahead, Carly, and tell us what's going on over at Cahill.
Hi, so my name's Carly. I actually don't have a PowerPoint. If you want, you can leave up the slides. So I don't have anything to share on the screen. But I'm the services coordinator at Cahill Place. It's owned by Center City Housing, which is a nonprofit organization that works with people who are experiencing hardships, and their mission is to decrease homelessness around the state. They own properties in Duluth, Rochester, and many more places. I don't know the whole list. I just know most of the details about where I work, which is Cahill Place in Dakota County. We're located in Amber Grove Heights. Our specific property caters to the families in Dakota County who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. We have 40 units when full. Currently, we have 3 empty units that all have prospective residents lined up coming through intake right now. At our building, Cahill Place, we have daily children's programming, which my coworker Lakeisha Morris, she'll talk about that later. And then we have a host of other events and activities for everyone.
9:30 rounds. I saw 10.
Molly, could you mute yourself, please?
So the events that we do, we have large family events 3 to 4 times a year, including Christmas, National Night Out, Thanksgiving, other, big holidays we try to go all out for. And the public is always welcome to come join us at these events if they want. And any of you could come too. During the weekdays, though, we have smaller activities where when the children are at school, the parents get to practice self-care, learn cooking skills, mental health skills during this time. And we have every day something going on with either parent or family events. And we have 2 case managers on site who have 16 cases each. And then the services coordinator, myself, I have 6. And we assist the tenants with many things. This includes paperwork, getting supplies for their home to keep things in order. They also perform monthly home visits, which is we just go have a conversation with them in their house and see what's going on in there to see if they need anything and assess the needs while we're in there. And we are always in need of household supplies and means for transportations like gas cards, Uber cards, bus passes. However, we do provide ride services with our van, but that can become really overwhelming with 40 families in one van. And I wanted to talk to you about what we provide for them. So we give them household supplies every month, which includes dish soap, body wash, anything you would need, toothpaste, anything you would need to live your life on a regular basis. And I wanted to touch on a success story we have. So we have a multitude of success stories. One of my favorites are a family who was previously struggling to maintain housing, and the mom in the family ended up homeless and had her kids taken due to something had happened. And the family's made up of 3 children and the mother, who during her time in the programming here, she became pregnant, and her family became a family of 5 instead of a family of 4. This was a really stressful time for her, trying to navigate what to do with this new baby. How am I going to have enough space for this? How am I going to provide? And so what we helped her with was we gave her a crib. We got her a gift, which was like a baby bag filled with blankets and all the things that you would want and need for that baby, and bottles and everything, during her pregnancy, she started talking about wanting to move. She wanted to find more space for her family because she felt like the 2-bedroom apartment she has here wasn't enough. Or 3. She has a 3-bedroom apartment here. We have 2 and 3-bedroom apartments. But she felt like the 3-bedroom apartment wasn't enough for her family. And instead of moving, me and her, she was my case, we talked a lot, and she decided to stay since we got her all those things that she needed. And she's been so grateful since, because we've helped her with formula, diapers, and all those other things that we provide. And so she's been really grateful since she moved here in October of 2020. A lot has changed for her. But now I'm going to let Keisha talk.
Hello. I'm LaKeisha Morris, the Children's Program Coordinator here at KO Place. And what I provide is services for the kids, a place to go, come to after school. This summer during the school year, we take the kids out on field trips. We provide toddler care. So I'm gonna break it down. My morning program is for the toddlers ages 5 and under. And what I do is let the kids play and build social skills and work on their social emotional development to make sure that they are able to navigate and get through traumatic experiences and are developing properly to start preschool. For my elementary kids and middle and high school kids, I provide an after school Kidscape program. And what we do in Kidscape programming is we do activities to also build their social emotional skills. We work on things like build community, getting them to get along with each other, to build some connections, build some unity within their apartment complex so they can get to know their neighbors and learn how to work with each other and play with each other and get through their little, bumps in the road that they have. We provide breakfast. We provide after school lunch or a snack. As the kids come into the programming, we play games, we make crafts, we create, and we explore, and I build off of their ideas and their desires, and I just keep them interested to get them out the house, get them off their cell phones, and get them just communicating with each other. My strong desire is just to teach kids how to be effective communicators and how to navigate through all of their emotions and all of this what this world is giving us. Just teaching them how to get through it. With the children's programming, parents are able to drop kiddos off and get some much needed me time. They get their chores done. They meet with specific people. They're able to run errands and just rely on the children's program as the kids being in a stable space that is safe and that it's enriching. Yeah, pretty much the children's program.
Great. Thank you so much. And Tony, were you going to present too? Tony?
Sue, I wasn't planning on presenting. I was going to answer any questions if anything came up, but I think
you want to just talk a little bit about how the CDA was involved?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we sort of touch a little bit on the continuum at the CDA. So the CDA, it's really important to think about the housing continuum as three legs of a stool. A unit, where can I live, and permanent housing. And so that's affordable. So a lot of folks out in the market don't need help, but there are folks in a plateau are going to have income challenges. And at the CDA, we believe that one of the primary ways to prevent homelessness is to allow for a place to live that I can afford. So our prime directive is to reduce the costs of housing. The second leg of the stool is rent assistance. So you can have a unit, and let's take Cahill Place as a great example of a model. So you have a unit, but we also have 40 vouchers over at Cahill Place that helps the rent assistance for the folks who are living there. So we help build a unit with the state of Minnesota. We used capital dollars, we used our dollars. Then we have this ongoing rent assistance to help the tenants pay for the heat, maintain the building that they're in. And then there is a third leg of the stool, which is really important, which are the services. And the county provides the services through Center Cities at that model. And so as we're thinking about all of these different ways that we all touch together in this community, we tend to be siloed. We work on a mission. We work very focused on what we do, but you have to keep context on everything and the continuum. And so primarily at the CDA, we have about 3,000 vouchers we administer for folks all over the county to help them pay their rent because they don't make enough money to pay the market rent. So that's the voucher program. We also have about 3,000 units of housing that is both senior housing, family housing. That mission is primarily to reduce rent burden. But as we know, as we start to see folks who are struggling in life with economic issues, also have other things that show up. There's chemical dependency, there's isolation. The pandemic has been a great example of that. And so what we are seeing in this continuum is pressure on those services. Somebody who can reach out and talk to somebody or prevent them from losing their housing, as we talked earlier, the legal side of it, when somebody's in a formal termination process. But can we get upstream a little bit? Can we get further before they're terminated? Let's have somebody knock on the door and find out what's going on. Have they become isolated? Are they falling behind organizational? We have a lot of folks who are great tenants, but they just get disorganized and they forget to pay bills or they isolate themselves. So the real challenge, in my opinion, we've got all this capital dollars that we can build units. We've got rent assistance. We could always use more rent assistance. But the real challenge is contextualizing those services and trying to figure out how we work with our nonprofit partners and everybody else to get upstream. Let's try and keep people from even getting that eviction notice. What's going on there? If they need financial assistance, let's get in there and get them the financial assistance. So it's been a great experience working on this, Sue, and you've been a great advocate pulling this together. I'm going to encourage that everybody on my staff watch this bus tour. This has been one of the better ones of getting folks videos and sharing this stuff, because I think that's what's important. We have to remember where we are on the continuum and who we're working with to help them out.
Thanks so much, Tony. And if folks can stay on just for a couple minutes more, we're going to just finish up with just a little bit of an update on some policy work. And so again, this is Center City, and we are going to thank them again. And we're heading up to the Capitol, because with all this great work and all this great community work, we also need to recognize that we have the need to make sure that we have resources. So I'm going to go very quickly through some policy information. So I'm going to share my screen again with another document. And these documents will be all on our website as a part of this. Oops, sorry. Wrong document. So you can stay for just a couple minutes more. We're just going to run through this very quickly. On federal policy, we are working with a number of national groups, National Coalition for the Homeless, and a number of other national groups. We have over 200 groups that are working on Bring America Home Now campaign. This is really to put trillions of dollars into housing and into resources to meet the housing, health, livable incomes, education, training, civil rights, and racial equity. Encourage you, if you are able to join us at Bring America Home Now and become one of our partners. And there was a link in the chat as far as how you can be involved. Some of our immediate requests is to get the highest level of funding for fiscal year 23 bill. So currently in the president's bill, he has 200,000 new housing choice vouchers. The House has 140,000 new vouchers, and the Senate has 5,000 new vouchers. So obviously we want to have as many new vouchers as possible and want to make sure that we have the resources to help prevent homelessness and get people into housing as quickly as possible. Some of the immediate threats is that we have an institute called Cicero that's going around the country and trying to create legislation that criminalizes people that are experiencing homelessness. In Tennessee, you are now charged with a felony if you are homeless. And in Missouri, they're not letting you use any of the HUD dollars for creating housing. Both of these are being challenged in court and also challenged with HUD. So we are being very aware of any attempts to do that here in Minnesota. As far as long-term solutions, we have the Family Stability Opportunity Voucher Act that would create an additional 500,000 in vouchers, and an Ending Homeless Act, which would basically make the voucher program universal for all folks that are eligible. And then we have the American Housing and Economic Mobility Act that would put money into our National Housing Trust Fund and expands the Fair Housing Act protections, many of these protections that we have under our Human Rights Act here in Minnesota. And then the Eviction Crisis Act, we talked a lot about the emergency rental assistance that we've had from the federal government. This would become a permanent program that we are supporting. And then the Fair Housing Improvement Act is designed to really address, again, discrimination for veteran status, military status, and source of income, so that landlords would not be able to deny folks from utilizing housing choice or Section 8 vouchers. One of the newer programs that comes online here in Minnesota that we passed in 2021 is the local homeless aid. So this comes through the tax committee and is actually local youth dollars that'll come to each of the different counties. In Dakota County, we're going to be getting $886,217 in 2023. And then we'll have about that same amount of assistance each year for the next 5 years. And it's designed to make sure that we have no child or youth in a local jurisdiction becoming homeless, and by providing rental assistance. So as we continue to work with Dakota County, want to continue to work on ways that we can start utilizing those dollars right away by potentially fronting the dollars on January 1st with American Rescue Plan dollars. And then the state will reimburse the county in July. And again, these are the different ways that those dollars can be utilized. Again, this is information that's in our constant contact. Encourage you to sign up for that with MICAH at MICAH.org and get additional information on that. Our legislative priorities, we move ahead for the 2023 session, is obviously we are very concerned that we left $12 billion on the table at this last legislative session. So we continue to want to ensure that the voice and power of people that have experienced homelessness or have not had stable housing are at every decision-making table, so that we're really designing the responses based on people's need. Lead poisoning continued to be a major issue in our homes, and so we're still pushing for the lead safe home bills. We do have dollars that are coming in from the federal government that'll help with that. Make sure that we have racial equity and equity across all of our different systems, and making sure that civil rights are being protected and that people are not being criminalized for experiencing homelessness. Real targeting at our housing dollars at people that are 30% of median and below as far as income. And then make sure that we are supporting livable incomes for both people that are employed, unemployed, and folks that are on public assistance. Of course, as people of faith of MICAH, we want to be a welcoming community where we're caring about all folks and recognizing that we all have made mistakes, and that we all need second chances and mercy, especially those who have been struggling with addiction, mental health and or physical health issues, criminal and rental issues. We will continue to work with Homes for All as they're developing the 2023 session priorities. And I'm going to turn it back over to Pat to conclude us.
All right. Thank you, Sue, for that quick telling us about what's going on at federal and state levels. So we look to gather everything together. We look at faith in action. What can we do? And we have a picture of Pope Francis of the Catholics, who in 2015 said, "We can find no social or moral justification, no justification whatsoever for lack of housing. We must demand that all our systems and organizations do what is needed to guarantee everyone without exception a safe, decent, accessible, and affordable home." We thank you all for being here today, for learning about what's going on with us. Invite you to join us on the second Tuesday on Zoom. Just go to the MICAH website and you'll be able to find the link and come in on Zoom and join us anytime you like. We just need to know that there is funding needed for all housing for everyone, and there are plenty of places. If you are a person who is at your church or your congregation and you have an opportunity to advocate for some funding, tell it to go toward housing, tell it to go to shelters, to MICAH organization and other type of advocacy organizations for housing, so that we can continue to walk this road with those who are homeless and make that number of homeless go down every year. We don't have to deal with having shelters anymore. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you next year and give you some updates on what we've accomplished in the next year.
Thank you all so much. And we will be doing a legislative breakfast in the early part of 2023. So encourage you to join us for that policy breakfast. We plan to have it virtually again. And we just want to thank everybody that presented today. Thank all of you for the incredible work that you're doing in the community every day. We can help ensure that everyone has a safe, decent, accessible home that's affordable for them at their income because of all of our work and by sharing our resources and being about the common good. So thank you all. Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.